You trust airlines with your life every time you board a plane. They tell you flying is safe. They show you how to buckle your seatbelt. But there are legitimate health risks they barely mention. Risks backed by actual medical research and aviation studies. Today we're examining 12 evidence-based flight risks that rarely make it into safety briefings. From the air you breathe at cruising altitude to the hidden chemical exposures during certain flights, these aren't conspiracy theories. These are documented realities from FAA reports, peer-reviewed studies, and aviation safety databases. Some of these risks affect frequent flyers more than occasional travelers. Others impact everyone on board, whether you're in first class or the back row. Airlines aren't hiding this information maliciously, but they're not exactly advertising it either. Hit subscribe because we're about to reveal what the aviation industry doesn't put in their safety videos. Let's expose the real health considerations of modern air travel. The oxygen mask reality. Here's something disturbing about those oxygen masks above your head. When cabin pressure drops and those masks deploy, you have approximately 30 seconds before hypoxia symptoms begin affecting your judgment and coordination. 30 seconds, not minutes. Seconds. But here's the part that really matters. Those chemical oxygen generators provide breathable oxygen for only 12 to 15 minutes maximum. The mask creates oxygen through a chemical reaction that literally burns at over 1,000 degrees inside the generator. That burning smell passengers sometimes notice? That's normal. Why so little time? Because pilots must execute an emergency descent from cruising altitude to below 14,000 feet in under 5 minutes. At 35,000 feet, your time of useful consciousness without oxygen is just 30 seconds. This is why flight attendants stress putting your own mask on first. You could pass out before helping anyone else. Cabin air contamination events. Most passengers have no idea that engine oil fumes can actually contaminate the air they're breathing. These incidents are called fume events, and they happen more often than airlines advertise. Research data shows fume events occur in approximately 1 out of every 5,000 flights. The problem stems from how most aircraft get their cabin air. They use bleed air tapped directly from jet engine compressors. When engine seals leak or fail, synthetic oil and hydraulic fluid can enter this air supply. The Boeing 757 accounts for over 40% of reported contamination events. Flight crews have reported symptoms including headaches, dizziness, respiratory issues, and in documented cases, temporary cognitive impairment severe enough to require emergency landings. NASA safety reports from 2018 to 2019 identified 362 voluntarily reported fume events where pilots, flight attendants, or passengers needed medical attention. The FAA acknowledges these events occur, but maintains rates are less than 33 events per million departures. Cosmic radiation exposure. At cruising altitude, you're being bombarded by cosmic radiation at levels 10 times higher than sea level. This isn't science fiction. It's documented physics affecting everyone on board. Flight crews face the most significant exposure. Research published in 2019 found that pilots and flight attendants have more than double the melanoma risk compared to the general population. Female cabin crew show a 51% higher breast cancer rate and 4 times the non-melanoma skin cancer risk. A single round-trip flight between New York and Bangkok delivers about 100 microsieverts of radiation exposure. For occasional travelers, this poses minimal risk. But frequent flyers accumulating dozens of flights annually face measurably higher cumulative doses. Polar routes carry even greater exposure where Earth's magnetic shield offers less protection. The Federal Aviation Administration provides calculators for estimating radiation doses on specific routes, though few passengers ever check them. Infectious disease transmission. Aircraft cabins function as enclosed tubes where hundreds of people share recycled air for hours. This creates ideal conditions for airborne pathogen transmission. During the 2003 SARS epidemic, one flight from Hong Kong to Beijing saw 16 of 120 passengers develop proven SARS infections from a single sick traveler. This incident demonstrated how efficiently diseases spread in aircraft environments. Parainfluenza and influenza viruses are the most common respiratory pathogens passengers encounter. Research following the September 11th flight ban found that restricting air travel significantly limited global influenza spread that season. Despite high air exchange rates and HEPA filtration systems on modern aircraft, close proximity to infected passengers substantially increases transmission risk. The CDC acknowledges documented SARS-CoV-2 transmission during air travel, though quantifying exact risk remains challenging. Airlines have no standardized air handling protocols, and there's insufficient data on which transmission methods, large droplets, small particles, or surface contact, pose the greatest risk. Deep vein thrombosis reality. Airlines mention stretching your legs. They don't emphasize that deep vein thrombosis is the third most common vascular disease after stroke and heart attack. Sitting immobile in cramped seats slows blood flow in leg veins, allowing clots to form. These clots can break free and cause life-threatening pulmonary embolisms. Studies confirm DVT risk increases with flight duration and frequency. Multiple flights within a short time frame compound the danger. Recent research shows average seat pitch has declined to just 31 inches from 35 inches 2 decades ago. Seat width dropped from 18 inches to 17 inches. Less space means less movement and greater clotting risk. Passengers with recent surgery, pregnancy, obesity, or varicose veins face elevated danger. Yet most travelers receive minimal education about compression stockings, hydration protocols, or the critical importance of regular movement during flights. Cabin pressure effects on medical conditions. Commercial aircraft maintain cabin pressure equivalent to being at 8,000 feet elevation, even while flying at 35,000 feet. This reduced pressure affects your body in ways most travelers don't consider. Lower atmospheric pressure means less available oxygen reaching your bloodstream. For healthy individuals, this causes minimal issues. But passengers with cardiovascular or respiratory conditions can experience significant complications. Gas expansion at altitude affects everyone. Any gas trapped in your body, whether in your stomach, sinuses, or ears, expands as pressure drops. This explains why passengers feel bloating, discomfort, and ear pain during flights. Recent surgeries pose particular risks. Procedures involving gas introduction to body cavities require specific recovery periods before flying safely. Pneumothorax, recent eye surgery, or any condition involving trapped air creates serious altitude-related dangers that most passengers never discuss with their physicians. Dehydration and low humidity. Cabin humidity typically hovers around 10 to 20%, drier than most deserts. This extreme dryness affects passengers in multiple ways they rarely connect to flying. Low humidity causes rapid dehydration. Your body loses moisture through breathing and skin evaporation faster than you'd experience in almost any ground-based environment. This dehydration contributes to fatigue, headaches, dry eyes, and respiratory irritation. The dry air also dries out mucous membranes in your nose and throat, your body's first line of defense against pathogens. When these natural barriers dry out, you become more susceptible to catching whatever viruses fellow passengers are circulating. Airlines don't provide enough water to offset this dehydration. The tiny cups of liquid offered periodically fall far short of what your body actually needs during multi-hour flights in such air conditions. Circadian rhythm disruption. Jet lag isn't just annoying tiredness. It's documented disruption of your body's fundamental biological rhythms with measurable health consequences. Crossing multiple time zones rapidly overwhelms your circadian system. Research shows consistent disruption of body rhythms can contribute to cardiovascular issues, metabolic problems, and cognitive decline. Studies examining long-term frequent flyers and flight crews document these effects. Your body clock controls far more than sleep. It regulates hormone production, digestion, immune function, and cellular repair processes. When you fly overnight or cross multiple time zones, these systems fall out of sync. The impact compounds with frequency. One international flight might cause temporary disruption, but regular long-distance travel creates chronic circadian misalignment that research increasingly links to serious long-term health effects. Flight crews showing these impacts serve as warning indicators for frequent business travelers. Contaminated drinking water systems. Here's something that might change your in-flight beverage choices. The water used to make coffee and tea on airplanes often comes from tanks that are rarely properly sanitized. Multiple studies analyzing aircraft water systems have found bacterial contamination, including E. coli and Staphylococcus, in water tanks. These findings aren't isolated incidents. They represent widespread issues across commercial aviation. The problem stems from how aircraft water systems function. Water sits in tanks for extended periods. Maintenance schedules for cleaning these tanks vary widely between airlines, and enforcement is inconsistent. The tubing and fixtures in aircraft plumbing create ideal environments for biofilm formation. Many flight attendants refuse to drink hot beverages made with aircraft water. They understand what testing has revealed. For passengers, this means accepting bottled water or sealed drinks represents the safer choice. Your morning coffee could literally be brewing with bacteria-laden water. Noise-induced hearing damage. Aircraft cabins generate sustained noise levels between 75 and 85 decibels throughout flight. For perspective, prolonged exposure above 70 decibels begins causing hearing damage. Passengers near engines experience the worst exposure. Studies show travelers in rear seats face greater hearing loss risk than flight attendants who can move around the cabin. The constant drone affects everyone, but window seat passengers near wing-mounted engines endure the highest sustained levels. Many passengers compensate by increasing headphone volume an extra 5 decibels above ambient noise. This compounds the damage they're already experiencing from cabin noise. Noise-reducing headphones can cut exposure by up to 40 decibels, providing significant protection. But most travelers use standard earbuds, offering minimal noise isolation, unknowingly subjecting their hearing to prolonged damaging exposure. Tray table and surface contamination. Studies examining aircraft surface cleanliness reveal disturbing findings. Security checkpoint trays carry more germs than public restroom surfaces. But inside the cabin, your tray table ranks as one of the filthiest spots passengers routinely touch. Between flights, cleaning crews have minimal time for deep sanitization. Tray tables often receive just a quick wipe. Flight attendants report passengers doing everything imaginable on these surfaces, including changing diapers. Seat back pockets harbor similar contamination. These fabric compartments are almost never cleaned between flights. Passengers stuff used tissues, food waste, and various debris into these pockets. The next passenger reaches in without knowing what accumulated from previous flights. Microbiological testing confirms these surfaces harbor bacteria, viruses, and fungi at levels that would fail health inspections in restaurants. Yet millions of passengers place food directly on trays without sanitizing them first. Psychological and mental health impact. Air travel creates psychological stress that research increasingly links to measurable mental health effects. The combination of crowded conditions, loss of control, security procedures, and flight anxiety affects travelers in ways that extend beyond temporary discomfort. Studies document increased anxiety, mood disturbances, and even depressive symptoms associated with frequent flying. The stress compounds for travelers dealing with airport chaos, flight delays, and separation from normal routines. Flight crews show elevated rates of certain mental health conditions compared to general population. The irregular schedules, constant time zone changes, and separation from home and family contribute to these outcomes. For passengers with existing anxiety disorders or claustrophobia, flying creates acute stress responses. The enclosed environment, inability to leave, and lack of control trigger fight-or-flight responses that some travelers experience as panic attacks. Yet airlines provide minimal mental health support or acknowledgement of these legitimate psychological challenges. There you have it, 12 evidence-based flight risks that airlines rarely emphasize in their safety presentations. From the contaminated air systems in some aircraft to the radiation exposure at cruising altitude, these aren't fictional threats. They're documented realities backed by FAA reports, medical research, and aviation safety data. The aviation industry has spent decades building flying into the safest form of transportation. But safe doesn't mean risk-free. Understanding these legitimate health considerations helps you make informed decisions about how often you fly and what precautions make sense for your situation. Which risk surprised you most? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you're a frequent flyer, share which precautions you actually take to minimize these exposures.